Welcome to the Pinnacle Take Podcast with renowned recruiter and podcast host, Benjamin Mena. Get ready to take a ride with this dynamic network of professionals and seize the coveted chance for personal and professional growth.
I am so excited about this episode of the podcast because this guest averages $2.5 to $3 million a year. But here's the thing. He's found a way to leverage his time, his energy, and his effort in a way that I've never seen a recruiter ever do this before. It's one of those things. Like, he wanted to get off the hamster wheel, the treadmill of recruiting, the day in and day out. And he wanted to find a way to compound his time, compound his energy, and compound the relationships that he developed. And we're going to break this down. I am so excited to have Mike on the podcast today. Welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you, Ben. Appreciate you.
I know Rich Rosen put you up to this, so excited about this interview.
You put me up to a lot of things over the years.
So before we dive in, quick 30-second self-introduction.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I started in the recruiting business in 2008 in a really tough time after a 3-month career in commercial real estate, which was my big grandiose plan. And so started at this little 5-person recruiting firm after losing my job right out of college 3 months in. And that firm had been recruiting in the manufacturing automation space, which was really, really tough. And about 6 months into cold calling and getting nowhere, was fortunate to start the healthcare tech and life sciences practice here at Direct Recruiters out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, wait. So you, 6 months into even learning the job, you started a whole new practice?
Yeah, and certainly not very glamorous. It was more out of survival. In 2008, I was charged to go NPC and go cold call and find business. The firm that I worked for had been around since 83 and was on a little bit of tough times. The economy was really tough. And so I was cold calling people in a database that had been, was 10, 15 years old. And people were like, hey, man, we're firing people. We're not hiring people. Good luck. And so my job was to go find leads and go find business. There was nothing to recruit on, and eventually got the CEO of the company to agree to send me to a trade show in Chicago at McCormick in the healthcare tech space, which we had started to dabble on the periphery in, and we got him to do that and spend some money and kiss babies and shook hands for a couple of days and got a bunch of business cards in a new industry and brought him back and cold called my way into it. So that's how I got started.
I want to take a step back. So you were 3 months into a commercial real estate career that you thought that was your future.
Yeah. So I had interned for 3 different commercial real estate firms in college. One of them hired me. It was a publicly traded firm that hired me going back into my senior year of school. And so while I was a senior in 2007, 2008, I had a job in my pocket. I was drinking a lot of beer and not paying too much attention to what was going on in the world. Their stock price dropped from $55 a share to $5 a share while I was a senior in college. That's a funny story. I had a senior project class that was it was a seminar class. It was the 10 lessons in real business. And it was actually the guy that ran that class was the president of Monster.com skilled labor division, who was a former Miami grad. So it was interesting that there was a little recruiting connection. But the final project for that class was to write a 10-page 10-year plan. And in that 10-page 10-year plan, I had this big career planned out in real estate, and I was going to marry the girl that I was dating for 2 years in college. And within 3 months after graduating, I broke up with the girl and lost my job in real estate. And so my whole 10-year plan went out the window. So
out the window. Ow. Okay. So how did you end up in this recruiting chair?
It was, again, totally by accident. The real estate industry was in the dumps, and I had a friend from high school and college whose dad had this recruiting firm, Direct Recruiters. I didn't know anything about recruiting. I was like, hey, maybe he'll help me find a job. And he ended up offering me a job for half what I was making 2 weeks earlier. And none of my friends could find jobs. And I was like, whatever, man, you live in a big house. Let's get after it. So that's what I'm looking for.
So he literally hired you when the entire operation was struggling.
I learned at a later date that his name's Sean Meyerhoff. Was the founder of Direct Recruiters. That he went $80,000 into his retirement to make payroll. And so he didn't lay anybody off during that time. That's how bad business was. So I didn't find that out for a couple of years, but that, really hit me and have never taken that for granted. And I was fortunate that he took that gamble and saw something in a 22-year-old kid that was worth investing in, and forever grateful for that.
I just the world's on fire. I remember that time period, and he could have just said no to you.
So my partner, David Peterson, who I've worked with now for 17 years, he was the guy, he'd been there for 25 years. As of today, he's been there 25 years. He was the one that had an opening on his team that he was looking for somebody, and he turned me down. At the time, I was like, can I go back to undergrad? Like, this is terrible. But I did an end around on David, and I got Shelly. I was like, Shelly, I can do this job. So I got him to hire me personally. And so I saw David actually around town the weekend before I started. I was like, hey, great news. I'm starting a new company. He goes, what? I goes, yeah, I got Shelly to hire me. And so every year on my anniversary, David calls me and tells me that he could have retired a decade earlier had he made a different decision and pulled the trigger. So we laugh about it as he's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, but you just never know. But okay, let's jump into your first year. You jumped into a horrible market. 6 months in, you started a whole brand new division, bought a ticket, sent you to a trade show and said, go shake some hands, kiss some babies. What did your first year look like? Would you walk away with that year?
$44,000. And that was a freaking grind. I mean, to give you an idea, we were in full, as Shelly would say, it's wartime around here. We were in full survival mode. And, right at the end of a month, we had closed 2 pretty big deals, and he took me golfing, and that was on a Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, both of those deals had fallen apart. And so it was tough, man. And I didn't know any different or any better. And so I was fortunate that I had some of the folks that had been at the company for years I'd stick around with late at night after the day, and I'd be like, man, and they'd be like, hang in there, this will get better. They had seen better days. And every Wednesday, my dad would meet me at Subway, down the street, and buy me a sandwich and talk me off the ledge for the first 6 months. But honestly, I was looking for a career. I had been kicked around, but getting canned in real estate really sucked and hurt. Kind of, put me in a position where if somebody was going to take the time to invest in me, I was going to work my ass off. I was determined to be successful at something, and I knew I had it in me, but I just needed an opportunity.
So you've seen a lot of recruiters, and I know the 2002, 2003 was kind of the golden era of just recruiting. You had to grind it out back in 2008. Do you think if you started a great time, things would be a little different for you?
I do. Look, I mean, that experience in starting in a really tough time gave me an insatiable kind of hunger and feeling of scarcity that has stuck around with me to this day. I never took for granted a day in this, and that in recruiting, your desk could look amazing on a Tuesday, and by Thursday morning it could be a bunch of crap. Everything could fall apart. And so I think what's probably been a key to just my success, just as far as stability, is that I always did business development every day. And there was never a time where I was like, oh, I got a lot of good things to recruit on, I'll go develop business later. If anything, the business development side of recruiting was really the part that I enjoyed the most. Recruiting was kind of a necessary evil. And so, not that it was evil, but it just wasn't my favorite. I liked the chase. I liked the hunt. I liked the new customers. I liked salesperson, right? But that scarcity of knowing that stuff could disappear, knowing that, nobody was going to hand me anything. Nobody knew who the heck Direct Recruiters was or Mike Silverstein in the healthcare space. And I didn't know, I was learning every day, and I was fortunate because at the time, even in healthcare tech, there was a lot of people that were out of work, and they were pretty senior people. And so I was fortunate to be able to catch pretty senior people that were maybe out of work or in the job market that would take the time to explain to me what they did and explain the industry to me, which that really helped me with some early understanding of my space. And I mean, I still work with some of those people to this day that I met in 2009, 2010, some of them. I mean, I've been fortunate. I'm the guy that has friends, some of my best friends, the same people I've been hanging out with since first grade, right? And so been able to cultivate relationships that have lasted a long, long time, and frankly have become friends and people that going to trade shows these days are exciting for me because I end up just getting beers and hanging out with people, and people come to me, and I've been able to build on that over the years. And it's just stylistically, that's just what's always worked for me, and I've never taken that for granted.
I'm really going to take apart your relationship strategies later on, but you hit your first year. Going into your second year or third year, when did you start really hitting your stride?
So I probably tripled my income from my second year. I was able to get people to take a chance on me. I wasn't telling them I knew everything. I wasn't telling them that I even knew what they did. I just told them that if you give me a shot, I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm going to go work my ass off, and I'm not going to let you down. People appreciated the fact that I think, hustling, and I was a young guy that was genuine and trying to do it. Whatever I said I was going to do, I made sure that I did it. If I told somebody I was going to follow up with them, I would follow up with them. Like, I was maniacal about that. And I was a quick learner, and I was good with remembering things about people. I was never good at putting stuff in a database. I was terrible at that. And, following through with people was always important, keeping your word and just building that trust. And so, I got some folks to be able to take a chance on me. And it turned out early on, I had this one chief revenue officer that let me hire some salespeople for him. And then he referred me to another buddy of his who was another chief revenue officer. And it turns out those were two portfolio companies from Francisco Partners, the private equity firm. And so that was pretty great early on. And that FP at one point called me pretty early in my career and said, "Hey, we've been hearing your name. Who are you?" And I said, "Who are you?" And so it turned out, fast forward, I've been a preferred partner for a really great private equity firm that started really, really early on and probably made 100 deals in that portfolio over the years. And it was because just one guy introduced me to another buddy and said, "Hey, Mike's going to hustle and he's trustworthy. Give him a shot." And that was kind of just how I got going.
Okay. So we say constantly that we're in the relationship business.
Yep.
That's what we say. Like, every recruiter says that, but I feel like not every recruiter is like this good with relationships. Like, how did you get good with this? Like, people call you, referrals come in. Like,
so early on, really early, I in the kitchen at DRI was watching Jeff K's training videos from Next Level Exchange, and I was listening to Scott Love's training CDs, which DRI folks will tell you, like, I think I traded that car in and the CDs never came back. I think I traded them with and they were not cheap. But Scott Love's big concept that always stuck with me was, put deposits in the bank account before you make withdrawals. And so I think I was talking to my wife about this recently, and that my kids, I think, have a similar thing, and that, like, I always had as a kid and growing up kind of an EQ spidey sense around just when I was in a room with people of, like, I could tell when people were comfortable or uncomfortable. And I was the kid that would always like talking to adults. What I didn't love about cold calling and early on and MPCing was it always seemed very, very transactional. It was very like, you've got money, I need your money. Can you buy what I'm selling you? And I never thought that was a sustainable strategy to a career. I thought it was very, had to be at the right place at the right time all the time. And so it was really important early on to me to figure out, okay, how do I build something where I don't have to be at the right place at the right time, but I leave the right impression with people, that I can create some mind share and get some real estate in somebody's mind, and then work on getting real estate in somebody's mind, and then working on my positioning and my branding with that person over time. Right. And so that I would be if they had a need or they wanted to make a career change, or frankly, look, from a relationship standpoint, if their kid needed a job, if their college roommate, if their spouse, right? To this day, I probably talk to 4 or 5 calls a week with kids, spouses, roommates, best friends who are having a tough time. And I find myself, I'm a guy that, I don't care who I talk to, whether it's a waiter or waitress that's busting their ass, or somebody that had a big corporate career. Like, I get pep talks to people. I'm like, look, you've had a great career. You're fantastic. Like, just giving people a cup of self-esteem, because when people have done that for me over the years, it was meaningful. And so I think that, to me, you go help somebody's kid who's, in college and needs to put their resume together, or their spouse or their neighbor who's been unemployed for 6 months. There's nothing better you can do than that as far as building a relationship with somebody. I don't care how many problems you solve for them professionally. If you help somebody in their network that's important to them and take the time to do that, that puts you in a different spot.
You talked about like leveraging like your time and like building a brand and that kind of stuff. And I want to talk about the networking group in a second. But before that networking group kicked off, was there any other dumb ideas that you tried that ended up working or not working?
Yeah. I always, not a bunch of really formal ideas, but I always made sure, I always I was fortunate my firm saw the value in sending me and some of my colleagues to trade shows. So I always found value in seeing people in person, right? This is a phone business, and we could talk about that, because I think that there's a referendum on that these days with some of the earlier in career folks. But even more so, like, seeing people in person, letting them see that you're a real person and that you're, you're not just a recruiter, you're actually in the industry, and making sure that I would take the time to go press the flesh. I would, take people out for coffee. I'd get to know about people's families and kids and things like that. And I tell them about my family and kids and friends. It's me. It's who I am. I'm just authentic. It was always important to me that the person that on the phone during the day was the same person that was with my buddies on the weekends. And I just found that translated. And I think if you ever, folks that try to put on this persona during the day, I think people see through that, at least the good ones. And the people that you want to do business with can see through if you're being genuine or not. And so one of the things I emphasize with everybody is just be yourself and like unapologetic and authentic, and people will appreciate that. If you're trying to be something you're not, people won't trust you. And this is a trust-based business. So
before I go to the next question, it seemed like on the tip of your tongue, you wanted to say something about phones and younger recruiters. Just say it.
Dude, we're in the people business, and AI and drip campaigns and things like that. That's all wonderful, but it's only wonderful if you're using it to get on the phone with people and to build relationships. I think the way that we're going to avoid being replaced in this industry is by being a market master and knowing the people and knowing the industry. If all you know is how to set mousetraps, you will get replaced in this industry. And so I think, in-mails and emails and texts and all that stuff, I think, some of the younger folks in this industry think, okay, talking on the phone is inefficient. Why do I need to do that? I think it's a little bit of a commentary on just the generation that's coming out of school these days. But I'll tell you what, the people that make decisions and the people that have the budgets, they're calling the people that they trust. They're not sending you big 5 and 6 figure checks because you had an awesome drip campaign. Get on the phone. And then I'll get off my soapbox.
I saw it in your eyes and I'm like, he wants to say it. Let me just open the door. But okay, so awesome. Perfect. I want to talk about what absolutely blew my mind when you shared at the Pinnacle Society. There are a lot of ways like leverage your time and do things in our business. I really need to find another terminology, but there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat in this game. There's so many ways to build a recruiting business. You have a networking group that has turned into like the greatest business development tool I've probably seen out of recruiters out there. Explain the networking group. And I want to how did this even start to come about?
It was pretty organic in that, again, I've been doing this almost 17 years. So I was starting to have customers and important people in my career that were starting to age into doing more fractional and board and advisory stuff and not really fit squarely into my day-to-day anymore. But they were people I really wanted to stay in touch with who had been really integral to my career. And so a lot of those folks had big corporate careers, and for the first time in their life, they're putting a shingle out to be an advisor, and they had never done anything like that before. And so my thesis around that was twofold. One, I wanted to stay in touch with these folks. Two, these were all really influential people who had the ear, and people that trusted me, had valued the relationship with me. And they're people that had the ear of investors and CEOs, right? So if they were a former chief revenue officer, they were getting hired by high profile companies to advise them on their commercial strategy or, things along those lines. And my thought around always trying to not have to be in the right place at the right time was if that person and me have the same constituent, a CEO, an investor, and if they're at the table advising a company and that company is about to go through a growth spurt, I want somebody at the table that's saying, hey, you should call Mike. And it was building I had a Rolodex of folks that were like that were starting to do that kind of stuff. There were bankers, lawyers, accountants, consultants, product people, you name it. And in addition to that piece of it, they were a trusted advisor to someone. They had never promoted themselves personally. Most of them weren't entrepreneurs. And so my whole idea was, let me get this group of folks together that are important to me. They're all great people. They'll like each other. And all of them were looking for ways to get business for their own consulting. And so I made a career around being the guy that knows a guy. Hey, I know a guy. Let me introduce you. And I wanted to pay that forward around, let's get this group of people around the table so that they can be the person that says, hey, you need a lawyer? I've got a great person. You need a recruiter? I've got a great person. And we would exchange introductions to that effect. And that's how it started. And that was great. And frankly, it's just grown organically in that I talk to interesting people every week. And anybody that I find super interesting, I just invite to this group. And so fast forward, I'd get that group together monthly on Zoom and we'd kind of talk shop and what everybody's up to. Started probably about 10 people. I have 650 people in that group today. It's probably a third investors, 2/3 operators. There's probably 50 heads of portfolio talent from investment firms. And they were just all people I talked to and deal with throughout the year. And I just decided, because I'm terrible at putting them in a database, that if I just put them all on a spreadsheet, invite them all to a group and get them to show up and work on keeping that sticky from a content perspective, it'd be great. And, lo and behold, I'm like the only recruiter in there. So I never really talk about recruiting, but I try to make it really curated, interesting content for that audience. And, it gives me license to email that group every week with the new people and send out really interesting stuff and host these interesting webinars. And people jokingly call it's like Mike's network mafia, but I'm like the recruiter that everybody knows and sees and hears from every week and like asks, and they're telling their friends, and I'm getting inbound all the time. Like, hey, can I invite the chief medical officer from whatever to our group? I'm like, yeah, twist my arm. Sure. So it's been pretty powerful from a network effect perspective.
So for that networking Zoom call that you have on a monthly basis, like what's the structure of it that it's so good that people want to keep on coming back?
So I have 3 20-minute blocks and I try to have different folks bring in different speakers. So I have, whether it's investors, CEOs of tech companies. A couple weeks ago, I had the guy that ran the innovation group for Johns Hopkins Health System. It's like their VC arm. And then he ran that for 7 years. And then he jumped in and was a CEO of one of their portfolio companies for a couple of years. And he ran it into the ground. And he gave a presentation on what not to do as a healthcare tech founder, right? And so you name it, I have had all different kinds of people just give. Basically, my ask of them is give a presentation on a topic you're a subject matter expert in that you're really passionate about, that would be interesting to the group, and just don't make it a commercial about just your business. We'll plug your business if you have one, but just talk to the group about something you're passionate about. And this ecosystem, it keeps it really diverse and keeps it, from all different types of constituents. And I think people come because I work pretty hard to find interesting people to talk about interesting things that are content they're not going to find anywhere else.
I've seen you talk multiple times about selling without selling. You've become a relationship king. Like at the end of the day, like how do you take these things and flip it actually into business?
Part of it is, again, it's just mind share. My subliminal messaging, when I send out these emails every week with another 10, 12 new people for the networking group that are all like top executives in the industry, is my brand is that I freaking know everybody, right? So if you're going to hire a recruiter, who do you want to hire? The guy that knows everybody, that I see that this roster, I send the link around, that makes connections, that knows the investors, that knows the CEOs, that knows you name it, or somebody that just has a great pitch and is going to tell me about all their process. Not like the proof's in the pudding. And that's really kind of the subliminal branding that I've been able to achieve. And so people in this group have asked me, like, how are you monetizing this? I was like, everybody in this group gives me their search business. That's how I'm monetizing it. I get inbounds every single day from investors who are about to close on a portfolio company, who want to do a build out before the dollars even close, or the CEO that needs this. Half the people in this group are people I've placed in jobs too, right? And so just, again, building that Malcolm Gladwell book, The Tipping Point, building that networking effect and kind of being that maven, that connector, that's really the brand that I've really tried to build. And I think I've done a decent job at doing.
And I know you're 17 years into this game. This networking group has been around for a while now. Like looking at your book of business right now on a yearly basis, like your 2.5 to 3 million average, how much of that percentage wise really comes from this networking group?
Maybe half, 2/3. But I've been fortunate in that, I don't know. I was asked the other day, like, who are your biggest customers? And early in my career, for, probably the first 10 years in my career, every year, probably my biggest customer would either change HR leaders or get acquired. And so it was always a vulnerability to me to have like that 80-20 concentration. And so at any given time, I probably have between 50 and 70 active customers, and that changes constantly because my business in healthcare tech is very transient around companies being acquired and merging and things like that. And so I had to always be really, really hustling for new relationships, and it kind of jive with my interest of being kind of that hunter relationship builder. And so, I don't have a big concentration anywhere, but I do have a good concentration as far as investors that use me across their portfolios. And so as they're raising new funds and deploying capital, I've learned that, align myself with those guys and become a trusted friend to them. And I could talk more about how I pay it forward with those guys, but following the money and being connected to the money versus being connected to certain companies, at least in my space, because just the company that was awesome for 5 years next year won't be around or they get acquired, right? And so I had to, I've got my built loyalty to people versus companies over the years and had to kind of change that mindset. But doing that and hitching my wagon to great people that are talented and also trying to follow the money and build relationships where the money is.
You said something about paying it forward with the investors. Where were you going to go with that?
Yeah. In March of 2020, I always had an interest. I had done some work in the investment world. But in March of 2020, I run a desk in the healthcare software business. And unless you were a company that sold PPE to hospitals in 2020, nobody was buying software, right? So my business pretty much shut down overnight for a few months. And I had a team of folks that worked for me that I had to look at and be like, okay, we're going to get through this, right? And so, I decided that it was a good time because a lot of these investment folks are hard to reach. They were traveling a ton. They were sitting at home in their pajamas also. So I was going to make a point of like cold calling and making a lot of outreach. And so I figured out at the time that the things that these investors, they're similar to recruiters. They're sourcing deals. They're trying to meet key executives that they can plug into these portfolio companies. That they're folks that can be advisors. They want information. They want connectivity, right? And so when I talk to a new investor, I ask them what stage companies do they invest in? What size checks do they write? What thesis areas are they focused on? Who can I introduce you to that would help inform a thesis you're working on? If I have a company that's, looking to raise money or looking to sell and it's in your area, would you be interested in hearing about them? Because I hear that stuff all the time. And it's yes, 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 and yes. And I've become, fortunately, a bird dog for a lot of firms that I get texts all week long. Hey, Mike, do you know this person? Or what do you think of this person? Or can you introduce us over here? Or what have you? And so figuring out what KPIs are they trying to hit every week and how can I help them do that? And again, become the de facto guy that can help them recruit once they buy those companies or invest in those companies, because the brand, again, I build is that I know everybody in my niche. That's the brand I'm trying to build, demonstrating that by making pro bono introductions. Like I've gotten people hired on boards that I didn't charge for, and it was just a major deposit in the bank account for some of these folks. And the return favor was, Mike's if we're going to build out a team, we're going to call Mike and Direct Recruiters because like they've been so good to us and they've done so much stuff for us. I mean, I get in the holidays, right? I got investors sending me golf balls and stuff to say thank you. And they're like apologizing to me that they haven't had recruiting work for us yet because we've been going out of our way so much to help them.
So you really are just like depositing a lot of stuff and not looking for an actionable return that very second.
100%. I learned from a woman named Kathy Willis years ago, and I've talked about her in other podcasts, but she was one of the first people I placed in healthcare tech in probably 2009. And she was one of the best sellers I'd ever worked with. She's retired these days. And she told me, Mike, resist the urge to sell. If you can not sell on the first call, you go from being in the sales bucket to being in the, that was really interesting. And you can put yourself in the trusted advisor bucket. And so the more you can put deposits in and without, people are waiting for the ask. And if you can get to the end of the phone call without the ask, without making the ask, people are like, holy crap, that was wild. He just offered to help and did some things to help me and didn't ask for anything. And it permanently puts you in a different bucket in people's heads. And that has transcended decades now for me.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier is like you've become like a preferred partner to like some of these VCs and PEs. Like everybody, like every recruiter out there is looking like, oh, hey, Mr. VC, Mr. PE, like you have all the money. Like I want in. And they have walls up higher than the Great Wall of China. How did you actually become the go-to person that these people call? Like, we don't need the thousands of other recruiters. We got Mike.
Deposits in the bank account, sending them companies, sending them people, sending them like, hey, here's a CEO that I think you should know. We send out on a monthly basis, roughly a list of the 10, 15 most interesting people we talk to every month, including their resumes. And we send it to all our investor friends, and we don't charge for those when they want to talk to those people. Our thought was the chances of us placing those people are, 1 in 100. It's a pay everybody. All those senior execs want to increase in their investor network. And so it's a pay it forward. It's a deposit in the bank account for the senior execs. It's a deposit in the bank account to get a pulse on the top talent. And if we could broker those introductions and not ask for it, it's one thing the retained search firm industry does a lot better than the mid-management contingent arena, is they do a lot of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I didn't reinvent the wheel, but I gave a lot of that connectivity away. And again, branding, it was entirely a branding exercise. When I cold call them and we'd have that, I get them to talk to me and we have that initial conversation, I would ask them, hey, is it okay if I send you my mailer once a month? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so 5-6 years later, they've been getting it. It's gotten passed around the investment community. And I've gotten to know tons of there's a job in investment firms that is the head of portfolio talent. And I've befriended and worked with tons of those gals and guys. And I found out, I talked to one of my friends who's in that role a week ago, that there is a secret Slack channel for all the heads of talent across all these investors. And she told me that my name comes up every month. And there's several people in that group every month that would say, Mike's great, use Mike. And so that was and again, I'm not asking for anything. I'm trying to be easy to work with. I'm trying to help any way I can. People ask me I don't have the time. I got to go make money. I'm like, you don't understand. If you do that stuff, the money will come. The business will come to you. You won't have to go find the business.
Okay, so I just want to say this one more time just to make sure for the listeners that they got this straight. You send out a mailer once a month via email with the top 10 to 15 people that you guys think are the most interesting. The resumes are in there and you don't charge a single dime for those connections.
No. The ask we have is, if there's a real search tied to a real company, is, hey, can you make an introduction for us to basically pitch our services to that portfolio company? But you can talk to that person. That's no problem.
Okay.
We use that as a means to make an ask. But if it's somebody that's just hey, we'd love to hire this person, talk to them as an advisor or for a project or from some diligence, all day. I don't charge for that. There's people that have been hired for boards that I haven't charged for either. But it's opened the door in a million places.
So these two have already been very interesting things that are completely out of the box. And I know when you talked about it at the Pinnacle meeting, I was like, hot damn. This is good. Is there any other just out of the box things that you guys are doing that just you don't see too often in the recruiting space?
I'll tell you what, for years, and I actually stopped doing it. It's when I flipped to sending these people, the investment firms, to my whole database, contact database of people that I want to develop business, not candidates. For years, every month, I would send my list of openings that I was working on. And so not candidates, I would say, hey, I'm working on these 15 jobs, and I would put my most senior jobs, and I'd send it to all the C-suite folks in the industry. And people are like, didn't you get in trouble for that? I was like, no. People, all these C-level people would send me their resumes and would refer me to people. And it turned into way more business than anything. And because it was a branding exercise, again, to demonstrate, hey, I actually have jobs. I'm not just sending you people. And so some of the best candidates and network effect I got was from sending out my openings to the whole industry. And people which it was really probably pretty easy to figure out who those companies were. But my thing was, yeah, I work with good companies. I work with real companies. I'm working on real jobs. And the complaint, you hear complaints that recruiters make shit up and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, no, man, this is what I'm working on. Call me. And so I ended up having to stop sending it. I made a decision to stop sending it because I would literally send that in email, and it would book my calendar solid for 3 weeks with senior executives every time I would send it. And so we made a decision to pare that back, and then alternatively start sending our top people to the investment firms.
Love that.
That email still gets circulated. I haven't sent it in 5 years. I still get people sending me old versions of that email that an exact that got from somebody that somebody's friend who's the C-suite of somewhere. That email still has traveled. So
dang. So you've also become an investor or equity partner in a lot of startups now. Can you talk about that real quick?
I really like the space I work in. As recruiters, we get to see under the hood in a zillion different companies, right? We end up getting to know and make opinions on the leaders that we think are great and the ones we don't think are great. I was fortunate, that I've been able to be an LP in a couple different, a few different investment funds that invest in this space. And then, even a few times where there's been companies where, a CEO that I've worked with that's great is starting a new business or start a new business. And I'm like, it's a gamble because I don't know the finances. So I'm not the guy that can go crunch and look at the pro formas and the valuations, but I'm like, I would put my money on this person with this idea that they're going to go kill it. And so, yeah, I eat my own dog food. I've done some of that. And then, as part of the networking group and things like that, I've been able to introduce young companies to investors and influential people in our network. And people have reached out to me and offered me equity positions as an advisor because they see so much value in that stuff. So I'm advising about like 8 different companies right now that I'm an equity partner in, all AI cool companies that have, for the most part, come to me.
Have you ever thought about going higher up the food chain and into like mergers and acquisitions?
I've helped a little bit of that stuff. I've helped companies get funded that I've introduced to, and I've helped turn on some companies that end up buying other companies. But again, for me, I'm not a banker. I'm not in that business. I don't know that stuff. But if I can introduce an investor to a company, like I introduce investors all the time to companies that they are looking at to buy. And again, I want the recruiting business. So when you go do that deal and you put a bunch of money in them and you merge a company, call me when you're ready to go build the team. And that, again, is a deposit in the investor bank account.
All right. So I want to talk about your team now. Like, how big is your team at this very moment?
I think my side of our group is around 18, between 18 and 20. And then my partner, Norm, who's also in Pinnacle, who I've worked with forever, and I was fortunate to hire him 13, 14 years ago. He's got about 10 on his side. So our healthcare group in total is about 30, about 2/3 and a third from a people standpoint.
Norm's an absolute rock star. Like, how'd you find him?
Yeah. I was friends with his older sister. His older sister is an OB that delivered both my kids. And we went to high school together, and she called me. She goes, my brother's in college and he needs an internship. I was like, I can't pay him but I'll pay him commission if he closes the deal. So Norm drove up, I don't know what year it was, 2010, 11, and in his little Toyota smart car with the mirror hanging off. And he worked for me for straight commission for a summer. And he outworked the 2-3 people that I had on my team that were full-time getting paid. He had one speed, and I was like, I need this guy to come back. And so was fortunate to got him to come back after he graduated. I think he turned Deloitte down to come work with me, which I think he actually wanted to work for Deloitte, but I think I lucked into it. And he was my right-hand guy for years. And then he broke off and has built, a sister business to mine that's wildly successful. So
like, how do you find like these great recruiters that like out there, and how do you build them?
I mean, it's taken a while. There are plenty of folks that have been here over the years that were good people. I've probably been able to refine that. It was hard early on because I was in my early mid-20s trying to hire people that were probably my age or sometimes older. And so, you probably didn't necessarily want to work for young 20-something Mike. 20-something Mike was pretty focused on making money for Mike. And so my managerial leadership style has evolved a ton over the years, in that it's hard to find good people. When you got them, you got to take care of them and you got to treat them like family. And I learned that from the guy that hired me. He treated me like family, and my DRI is a family. And so really, folks, I think we've made a big mind shift. We've talked about it as a company. We tried not to hire employees. We try to hire entrepreneurs. We don't pay a great base salary. We don't have great benefits. But like, if you want to build a freaking amazing career, this is the place. If you want to have a really good job, and it's a tough freaking job. There are easier jobs, but there's no better place to build a career. And that's really the people that gravitate towards that are the people that do well. The people that hammer you on your benefits and your salary and this and that, like, they come for a few years, they do their thing, and then they move on. The people that I've had that have been here for years and years and years, I'm the grandpappy to 10 partners in my healthcare practice that I started, which I'm very proud of. Those are folks that see the value in building a career and not just a job.
So when you say partners, like they've like growing into their own thing, like entrepreneurship?
They become equity partners in our company. So yeah, there's 10 equity partners in my practice that I, started, and they're not all recruiters. There's our head of research who became our head of research for the whole company. And my partner, Casey, was a recruiter, was a great recruiter. And then we decided that she didn't want to do recruiting anymore, but she just finds ways to make impact on the business, is a partner here. But people that are just very dedicated. Yeah. And so they're not all of them. Most of them have not created their own space. They've built great desks and hit certain thresholds to become a partner here, but they're monster contributors, and they're kind of the people that help develop the other people. We take it takes a village approach around here, and my team is amazing in that they go out of their way to like help new people and get them up to speed and hold their hand and help them, even though they're not necessarily paid for that. We're just a very close-knit group.
Awesome. Now, I want to go back to you a little bit. Like, you're absolutely crushing it. What is the daily habits that are keeping you at a high-performing level?
Just come to work every day. The thing that's probably the most important in this business is just discipline. I mean, from 8:30 to 6, like, I'm at work, I'm hustling. And these days I'm fortunate. I build a team that allows me to have a young family to be able to take time off and go do fun things. But I'm back to back every day, all week long. Like, my calendar next week is fully booked. Right. And so I make a point of like just not taking my foot off the gas, which is what I learned from my early days in 2008. Like, don't take your foot off the gas. And frankly, I get nervous when I'm bored or when we're slow, right? I would way rather be up to my eyeballs. The days go faster. Things are happening all the time. And so I go out of my way a lot with these other things that we do here to cultivate activity, keep me pretty busy.
So at full gas, 8 to 6, like, what does your day structure actually look like?
I talk to tons of like hiring managers and senior level candidates. They get referred. I'm doing, client calls. I'm kind of the primary rainmaker on our team. My job is to go get the business, and I'm involved in closing all the business, as needed. But I have my partner, Steve, who's our director of recruiting. I've got 3 full-time research managers on my team. I have a chief of staff. I've got a client engagement manager that helps. Emily helps with she does my calendar. She helps organize and curate all the stuff on the front end that goes out to clients and back and forth. A partner, Casey, who does all our onboarding and training. So it's a little company, man. People have roles that kind of modeled it really after our clients that have, they got sales, they got implementation, they got people working on operations, very much trying to get everybody working at top of license. Top of license for me is in the business development seat. It is not, I'm not a great operator as far as managing to the numbers and things like that. I don't even know on an annual basis within $1 million what my team does. I have never known. I'm so focused on what are we doing tomorrow and next month that I'm like, somebody else can count the beans. My job is to keep the funnel full, and it's always been like that. And so just putting in people in the seats that align to their skill set and interests, that's really been my focus. And that's how you get people bought in and working at their best capacity.
So Rich Rosen wanted me to ask you how being friends with him has shaped your career.
First of all, it gets me, make sure I get at all the Pinnacle conferences because Rich and I get into a lot of shenanigans. But Rich is unbelievable in that he's a one-man band and he's a machine, man. Like, that dude does 3 people's worth of stuff in addition to driving his wife and kids nuts, right? The funny part about Rich is like, he's never seen the value in building the team or had the patience to do it, but he's got a motor that's kind of like unparalleled. But I just love Rich is genuine. He tells you what he's thinking, how he is. He's a wonderful guy. And he's always he's been at this a lot longer than I have. He just goes. And so his motor and his just fearlessness, frankly, is always, I find, that's my favorite thing about Rich. In addition to he's up for whatever for a good time. But like, I'm 39, like I go to these conferences, I need naps. Rich is like banging on my door, like, where are we going? Let's go somewhere. I'm like, get the hell out of here, man. So like, his energy's nuts. So it's off the charts.
And he's going to hate me for actually asking that.
He'll trust me. I'll tell him that to his face.
So jumping over to the quick fire questions, but before we do that, I know we went deep on a few different topics. Is there anything else that you want to share or go deeper on that we didn't cover? Just
treat people the way you would treat people that are important in your personal life, and just be consistent. Consistent is the thing, right? Like, we lose more deals than we win in this space. And the only things that we can't control our billings, we can't control the deals, we can't control if people are going to take jobs, we can control our inputs. So make sure that you're proud of your inputs every week. The deals are cyclical, the billings are cyclical, but if you want to put up great year after great year, it's about what are you doing that you can control every day, which is relationship building and hustling and being hungry and being dedicated and just doing it every day. This is not a business you can parachute in for a couple months and then take a couple months off. Like, you'll suck and you'll never get off the treadmill. But if you are consistent and disciplined with your inputs, like, you will build a magical career.
Love it. these questions, they don't need to be quick answers. It's just like a separating like into like an actionable part of the podcast. You have somebody that walks into your office. It's their first day starting as a recruiter, never been a recruiter before. They sit down with you, see your success, and they're like, if you can give me one piece of advice to have a successful career like you do, what would you tell me?
Again, it's the people business, man. We're asking, to put in context what we do, we're asking companies to pay us 5 and sometimes 6 figures to hire a person. And we're asking people that we've never met a lot of times, go home, tell their spouse they're going to quit their 6-figure job because Mike in Cleveland on the phone said I should. Like, that is wild. It's the toughest form of sales, in my opinion. And when you're first starting, you're in a people business and you don't know anybody and nobody knows you. So how fast can you change that? And you're not going to change that with a bunch of marketing campaign. You're going to change that by having real conversation with people. So how fast can you do that?
Then this next question is more for like recruiters that have been around. Like, if you can give one piece of advice recruiters out there to really just start hitting elite levels, what would that piece of advice be?
Get off the transaction treadmill. I think if you're only focused on the deal in front of you, you're going to miss the forest through the trees so many times. If you're not doing stuff to build on, if a new person can start in recruiting tomorrow and that person can have as many real relationships as you do, if you've been doing it for 20 years, you're not doing it right. There should be a huge moat that you can build around your business by doing this over time. And so if you're not leveraging the time that you put in every day, and there is no barrier to entry, that like the new person that's got the new energy and the new hustle, if it's all about just how hard can you run, you're going to get run over by some 20 something that's just starting, right? But if it's about who do you know, who trusts you, who calls you for advice, who values you as a trusted advisor, that new person can't touch you, right? And so figuring out ways to become a trusted advisor and a market master and not just a sprinter. If you're a sprinter, you're going to run out of gas. Usain Bolt is now no longer an Olympian and is getting fat somewhere, right? You can't be Usain Bolt every day for an entire career unless you're Rich Rosen.
Unless you're Rich Rosen. What does the Pinnacle Society mean to you?
Pinnacle Society, and I've been in there for 10 years, is the best consortium of unbelievably awesome people that happen to be really good at their job. I'm in Pinnacle Society not necessarily because I come away with just crazy nuggets of game-changing information every 6 months. It's because I can recharge my batteries by being around people that become close friends and that are, frankly, we're all wired the same way. It's the most social, fun people that like give without asking in return, people that are open, and people that are just like, they get it. Like sometimes when you're running a search desk, like hey, you're managing people and you're dealing with clients, like it's hard for people to relate to that. Like my wife, she runs her own business. She still doesn't, it's hard for her to understand what I'm doing all day. I can sit down for 10 minutes walking into a Pinnacle conference and like we get each other. We can relate to each other. We can be vulnerable with each other. And like that's what I look forward to, is the people and the relationships. I learn something every time too, but I recharge my battery because you can get burned out in this business so easily, and having people that you can kind of confide in and relate to and frankly commiserate with, like that's something that's hard to find.
Do you have a favorite tech tool that you love?
I use this thing called Outlook 365, and I don't know, you're talking to the wrong guy around tech. My big move a few years back was, I got an iPad and an Apple Pencil instead of writing notebooks. So I've been paper free for 5 years. But, no, I don't know. This guy, cell phone, text. I'm not, my team is better at tech. I'm a phone jockey. I'm a text jockey. Like, I'm fortunate I've been able to hire people to help me stay organized, but I'm at top of license when I'm on the phone and on Zoom.
What is one of the biggest failures that you had to work through in this business?
And this is going to sound crazy. I've always been good at making deals. I think that the thing I had to learn was how to be a manager and a leader. I was fortunate to have some early monetary success in my career and I had to figure out how to help people build their career, not just have people help them build my career. And so I think, learning Norm, who I hired, Norm and I had a tough relationship over the years. Probably some of my biggest learnings came from like on the back of having some of that tough relationship and having to figure out how do I, I'm all about building things that's just sustainable, right? How do I adapt and become a leader that people want to work for? I think I've done that, but that's hard, man. And it takes, having some security, having some few bucks in the bank, having, confidence and some maturity in the business when you're starting out. And if your business is not mature and you're hunting every day, it's like Maslow's hierarchy. When you don't know where your next meal is coming from, it's hard to really care about much else. I think my maturation in this business has come from how to delegate and elevate people, how to trust people, how to take my hands off the wheel and give people space and to either sink or swim. And that didn't happen overnight.
This is the last question. And then you're part of the Pinnacle Society. You have a team that works with you. You probably get asked a lot of questions. And I'm sure many of them are like around, what's the secret to business development? What's the secret to networking? What's the secret to these deep relationships? Share the secret. But like all these questions that you've gotten over the years, do you ever just wonder, like, I wish they would just ask me this? What would be that question and what's the answer?
I never take issue with the questions. I take issue with the reaction to the questions. We have a mentorship or program like at our company where a junior person gets paired up with a more experienced person. And generally my company they tend to preserve my mentoring for people that are kind of like the high potential folks. And my number one rule with people is if we talk about something and you ask some questions and we talk about something that you like, I go do this and then let's talk about it. But next time we talk, make sure you've done that. Lip service is my number one no. And so don't tell me you were too busy. I told a mentee recently who is very interested in AI and drip campaigns, who told me that cold calling isn't a good use of his time. And I told him, with all due respect, I said, your time is neither valuable nor scarce. And so what do you mean it's not a good use of your time? And I told him, if you're still in this business in 10 years, you're going to wish that you put the time in when you were younger, because at some point your time is going to be scarce and hopefully it's going to be valuable. And so folks that are either not coachable or tell you they're going to do something and don't do it, those are the two things that I have no tolerance for.
Love that. Well, Mike, we've covered so many awesome things, and I'm glad that we got to have this conversation. And like when I asked about this month's podcast, literally, I think like Rich answered back within 15 seconds of me sending that email. Mike, if anybody wants to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
Just like on social or something? I don't know. Shoot me a LinkedIn, drop me a line. I don't know. I talk to other recruiters all the time. I talk to my competitors. Like some of my competitors become great friends. Like even the recruiters I compete with, it's a big enough pie out there. There's room for everybody. And I have an appreciation for the folks that have been doing it, competing against me and doing it the right way for a long time. Like, good on them. And so, yeah, just drop me a LinkedIn invite, or I don't know. I got off Twitter a year ago because I was getting the politics were crushing my soul. So I got off that. But yeah, I spend all day on LinkedIn. So drop me a line.
Awesome. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
It's a great business. This is the best business. I will do this for my career. I'm so lucky to have found this business. It is also the hardest business. I've never been bored in 17 years. I get beat up every day, at least once, sometimes more. There are some low lows, but they're high highs. But recruiters are a rare breed, man. The ones that do this and can do this for a long time. Get to know other recruiters and friends in the industry. Like Pinnacle has been so valuable to me just by having that network, because burnout, again, I mentioned it, burnout's a real thing. You can get really, really, really burned out in this business, and having friends that know what you're doing and going through on a day-to-day that you can call and use as a soundboard and get a perspective from is invaluable. It will give you longevity. It'll keep you having energy. So, Ben, I appreciate you very much.
Mike, this has been awesome for the listeners. He literally laid out how he has built his book of business, his career trajectory, the things that he's doing with his business. But like, you're doing stuff that I have not seen other recruiters doing, but you found a way to absolutely leverage your time and make it compound over and over again. So definitely thank you for breaking it down. And for the listeners, I want you guys to keep crushing it.
Thank you, brother. Great to see you, and good luck living abroad and eating all that fancy French food.